It all began in the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's exile, on the 5th day of the 4th month. Ezekiel, son of the priest Buzi, was among the captives by the Kebar River in Babylon. The people of Judah had been taken far from their homeland, torn from the place God had given them. While many wept by the rivers of Babylon, feeling the deep sorrow of exile, Ezekiel looked up to the heavens. That was when something extraordinary happened. The heavens opened, and he saw things no human had ever seen. God was about to make him a voice for a lost nation, a prophet for a people in exile. This is the story of how a simple exiled priest became one of Israel's greatest prophets, and how his visions forever changed the way we understand God. In Ezekiel 1:1-4, the prophet tells us, "In the 30th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, while I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God." What Ezekiel saw in that moment was so incredible, he could hardly describe it with human words. From the north came a powerful windstorm, a massive cloud with flashing fire and brilliant light all around it. And from within the fire emerged something that looked like 4 living beings. In Ezekiel 1:5-14, he describes them. Their appearance was human-like, but each had 4 faces and 4 wings. Imagine witnessing something like that today. Each being had the face of a man in front, a lion on the right, an ox on the left, and an eagle at the back. Their wings spread upward, with 2 wings touching those of the beings next to them, and 2 covering their bodies. They moved wherever the Spirit directed them, always forward, never needing to turn. Between the beings was something like glowing coals or flaming torches, with fire moving back and forth and lightning flashing out of it. But the vision became even more surreal. In Ezekiel 1:15-21, he saw a wheel beside each living being on the ground. There was a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its 4 faces. These wheels sparkled like topaz and looked as though a wheel was intersecting another, like interlocking gears. They could move in any direction without turning, perfectly synchronized with the movement of the beings. Above the heads of the beings was something like a vault, gleaming like crystal. In Ezekiel 1:22-25, he says, "Spread out above the heads of the living creatures was what looked something like a vault, sparkling like crystal." When the beings moved, Ezekiel heard the sound of their wings, like the roar of rushing waters, like the voice of the Almighty. Then, above the vault, came something even more astonishing. In Ezekiel 1:26-28, he saw a figure like that of a man, seated on what looked like a throne made of sapphire. From what appeared to be his waist up, he looked like glowing metal, as if full of fire, and from the waist down, he looked like fire, and brilliant light surrounded him. It was like a rainbow appearing in the clouds on a rainy day. This was the appearance of the glory of the Lord. When Ezekiel saw it, he fell face down. While he was on the ground, a voice spoke to Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 2:1-2, the Lord said, "Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you." The Spirit entered him and lifted him to his feet. God made Ezekiel's mission very clear. In Ezekiel 2:3-5, he said, "Son of man, I am sending you to the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their ancestors have been in revolt against me to this very day. The people to whom I am sending you are obstinate and stubborn. Say to them, this is what the Sovereign Lord says." It wouldn't be an easy task. The people might not listen, but at least they would know a prophet had been among them. God warned Ezekiel not to fear. In Ezekiel 2:6-7, he commanded, "Do not be afraid of them or their words. Do not be afraid, though briars and thorns are all around you, and you live among scorpions." Even if they refused to listen because they were rebellious, Ezekiel was to speak God's words to them. Then something remarkable happened. In Ezekiel 2:8-10, God showed Ezekiel a hand stretched out to him, holding a scroll. He unrolled it before me, and on both sides were written words of lament, mourning, and woe. It was a scroll full of heavy messages. Then came a strange command. In Ezekiel 3:1-3, God said, "Son of man, eat what is before you, eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people of Israel." Ezekiel obeyed. So I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth. This symbolized that Ezekiel needed to fully absorb God's message, make it part of himself, before delivering it to the people. The mission would be hard, but God promised to strengthen him. In Ezekiel 3:8-9, he said, "I will make your forehead like the hardest stone, harder than flint." Ezekiel would be made strong enough to endure the people's resistance. Then the Spirit lifted him up, and he heard a loud rumbling behind him. In Ezekiel 3:12-15, the Spirit lifted me up, and I heard behind me a loud rumbling sound, as the glory of the Lord rose from the place where it was standing. Ezekiel was taken to Tel Abib, where the exiles lived by the Kebar River. There he sat among them for 7 days, stunned and overwhelmed. After 7 days, the word of the Lord came again. In Ezekiel 3:16-21, God explained Ezekiel's responsibility as a watchman. "Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me." If Ezekiel failed to warn the wicked, he would be held accountable. But if he did warn them, even if they didn't listen, he would have delivered himself. Then God gave him an unusual instruction. In Ezekiel 4:1-3, he said, "Son of man, take a block of clay, put it in front of you and draw the city of Jerusalem on it, then lay siege to it." Ezekiel was to build siege works, erect ramps, and place battering rams around it. He was to take an iron pan and set it up as a wall between himself and the city, turning his face toward it. This would serve as a sign to Israel of what was coming. The demonstration of the siege became even more personal. In Ezekiel 4:4-8, God said, "Lie on your left side and put the sin of the people of Israel upon yourself. You are to bear their sin for the number of days you lie on your side." Ezekiel was to remain like that for 390 days, representing the years of Israel's sin. Then he was to lie on his right side for 40 days to bear the sin of Judah. He was bound with ropes, so he couldn't turn from one side to the other. To illustrate the coming famine, God gave another command. In Ezekiel 4:9-11, he said, "Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt, put them in a storage jar and use them to make bread for yourself. You are to eat it during the 390 days you lie on your side." Ezekiel was to eat only 230 grams, about 8 ounces of bread per day, and drink 1/6 of a gallon, roughly 0.6 liters of water daily. Originally, God commanded that the bread be baked over human excrement to show how the people would eat defiled food among the nations. But when Ezekiel protested in Ezekiel 4:14, saying, "Ah, sovereign Lord, I have never defiled myself," God allowed him to use cow dung instead of human feces. The message behind all this was clear. In Ezekiel 4:16-17, God explained, "Son of man, I am about to cut off the food supply in Jerusalem. The people will eat rationed food in anxiety and drink rationed water in despair, for food and water will be scarce. They will be appalled at the sight of each other and will waste away because of their sin." God then asked Ezekiel to perform another symbolic act. In Ezekiel 5:1-4, he commanded, "Son of man, take a sharp sword and use it as a barber's razor to shave your head and your beard. Then take a set of scales and divide the hair. 1/3 was to be burned in the city when the days of the siege were over. Another third was to be struck with the sword around the city. The final third was to be scattered to the wind, as God would pursue them with a drawn sword." Ezekiel was to keep a few strands of hair in his garments, but even from those, he was to take some and throw them into the fire. This symbolized how fire would spread through all of Israel. The meaning of this symbol was terrifying. In Ezekiel 5:10, God said, "This is Jerusalem, which I have set in the center of the nations, with countries all around her." But Jerusalem had been more rebellious than the surrounding nations, rejecting God's laws and decrees. "Therefore," said the sovereign Lord, "I myself am against you, Jerusalem, and I will inflict punishment in the sight of the nations." The punishment would be extreme. "Because of all your detestable practices, I will do to you what I have never done before and will never do again. Therefore in your midst parents will eat their children, and children will eat their parents. The survivors would be scattered to the winds." God made the reason clear. In Ezekiel 5:11-13, he declared, "Because you have defiled my sanctuary with vile images and detestable practices, I myself will withdraw my favor. I will have no pity or spare you. 1/3 would die by plague or famine, 1/3 by the sword, and the remaining third would be scattered." The punishment was meant as a warning. In Ezekiel 5:14-17, God said, "I will make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you in the sight of all who pass by." Jerusalem would become a reproach and a taunt, a warning and an object of horror to the nations. God would unleash famine, wild beasts, plague, and bloodshed upon them. Then God turned Ezekiel's attention to the mountains of Israel. In Ezekiel 6:1-3, he commanded, "Son of man, set your face against the mountains of Israel, prophesy against them and say, 'O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign Lord.'" God was about to bring a sword against them and destroy their idolatrous altars. The reason was rampant idolatry throughout the land. In Ezekiel 6:4-7, God declared, "Your altars will be demolished and your incense altars smashed, and I will lay your slain before your idols." The Israelites' corpses would be placed before their idols and their bones scattered around the altars. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Some, however, would survive. In Ezekiel 6:8-10, God said, "But I will spare some of you, for some will escape the sword when you are scattered among the nations." These survivors would remember the Lord in the nations where they were taken captive. They will loathe themselves for the evil they have done and for all their detestable practices. At last, they would understand that God had not spoken in vain. God instructed Ezekiel to express the horror of the situation. In Ezekiel 6:11-14, he said, "Clap your hands, stamp your feet, and cry, alas, because of all the wicked and detestable practices of the people of Israel. Every place where they offered incense to idols would be laid waste. I will stretch out my hand against them and make the land desolate. Then they will know that I am the Lord." The message grew even more urgent. In Ezekiel 7:1-4, God announced, "Son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says to the land of Israel. The end has come upon the four corners of the land. The end is now upon you. God would pour out his wrath and judge them according to their ways. I will not look on you with pity or spare you. Then you will know that I am the Lord." The end would be devastating. In Ezekiel 7:5-9, God declared, "This is what the sovereign Lord says, disaster, unheard of disaster. The end has come." The day was near, a day of panic, not joy. Soon, God would pour out his wrath. "I will not spare you or have pity. I will repay you according to your conduct and your detestable practices." The picture of destruction was vivid. In Ezekiel 7:10-13, God said, "The day has arrived, doom has burst forth, violence has grown into a rod to punish the wicked." The time had come, the day was near. Buyers and sellers would both be struck, for God's wrath was upon all. The consequences were unavoidable. In Ezekiel 7:14-19, God described, "Though they blow the trumpet and get everything ready, no one will go into battle, for my wrath is on the whole crowd." Outside was the sword. Inside were plague and famine. Everyone would be paralyzed with fear. Heads shaved in mourning, they will throw their silver into the streets, and their gold will be treated as a thing unclean. Their silver and gold will not be able to save them on the day of the Lord's wrath. The time of judgment had come because of their idolatry. In Ezekiel 7:20-22, God explained, "They took pride in their beautiful jewelry and used it to make their detestable idols. Because of this, God would hand them over as plunder to foreigners. I will turn my face away from them, and robbers will desecrate what I treasure." Disaster was now certain. In Ezekiel 7:23-27, God commanded, "Prepare chains, for the land is full of bloodshed and the city full of violence." He would bring the worst of the nations to seize the homes of the Israelites. When anguish comes, they will seek peace, but there will be none. Calamity upon calamity would follow, and rumor upon rumor. The king will mourn, the prince will be clothed with despair. I will deal with them according to their conduct and judge them by their own standards. Then they will know that I am the Lord. In the 6th year of exile, on the 5th day of the 6th month, Ezekiel had another astonishing vision. In Ezekiel 8:1-4, he recounts, "I was sitting in my house, and the elders of Judah were sitting before me, when the hand of the sovereign Lord came upon me with power." Ezekiel saw a figure that looked like fire from the waist down, and something glowing like metal from the waist up. This figure reached out what looked like a hand and took Ezekiel by the hair, lifting him between earth and heaven. In the divine vision, he was taken to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the north inner court, where the idol that provokes God's jealousy stood. There, Ezekiel saw the glory of the God of Israel, just as in the vision he had by the plain. God spoke to him. In Ezekiel 8:5-6, God said, "Son of man, look toward the north." Ezekiel looked and saw the idol of jealousy at the entrance. God said, "Do you see what they are doing? The utterly detestable things the people of Israel are doing here. Things that will drive me far from my sanctuary? But you will see even more detestable things." God showed Ezekiel an opening in the wall. In Ezekiel 8:7-11, after digging through it, he found a door. God told him, "Go in and see the wicked and detestable things they are doing here." Ezekiel entered and saw images engraved all over the walls, crawling creatures, unclean animals, and all the idols of Israel. In front of them stood 70 elders, each holding a censer, and fragrant clouds of incense rose. God explained, "Son of man, do you see what the elders of Israel are doing in the darkness, each at the shrine of his own idol? They say, 'The Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land.'" Things only got worse. In Ezekiel 8:13-15, God said, "You will see them doing things even more detestable than this." He brought Ezekiel to the north gate of the temple, where women were sitting and mourning for Tammuz, a pagan god. God asked, "Do you see this, son of man? You will see things even more detestable than this." Then came the most shocking scene. In Ezekiel 8:16-18, God took Ezekiel to the inner court of the temple. There, between the portico and the altar, were 25 men. They were facing east, bowing down to the sun. God said, "Do you see this, son of man? Is it a trivial matter for the people of Judah to do these detestable things here?" They were filling the land with violence and constantly provoking God to anger. "Therefore I will deal with them in wrath. I will not look on them with pity or spare them. Although they shout in my ears, I will not listen to them." Ezekiel then heard God cry out in a loud voice. In Ezekiel 9:1-2, God commanded, "Bring near those who are appointed to execute judgment on the city, each with a weapon in hand." 6 men came from the upper gate on the north side, each with a deadly weapon. Among them was a man dressed in linen, carrying a writing kit at his waist. They came and stood beside the bronze altar. The glory of God moved from the cherub to the threshold of the temple. In Ezekiel 9:3-4, God called to the man in linen and said, "Go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it." To the others, God said in Ezekiel 9:5-7, follow him through the city and kill, without showing pity or compassion. Kill the old men, the young men and women, the mothers and children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders in front of the temple. God said, defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go. And they went out and began killing throughout the city. While the slaughter was happening, Ezekiel was left alone. In Ezekiel 9:8-10, he fell face down and cried out, Alas, sovereign Lord, are you going to destroy the entire remnant of Israel in this outpouring of your wrath on Jerusalem? God replied, the sin of the people of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great. The land is full of bloodshed, and the city is full of injustice. They say, the Lord has forsaken the land. The Lord does not see. So I will not look on them with pity or spare them, but I will bring down on their own heads what they have done. The man in linen returned with a report. In Ezekiel 9:11, he said, I have done as you commanded. Ezekiel then saw something extraordinary above the vault over the heads of the cherubim. In Ezekiel 10:1-2, it looked like a throne of sapphire. God spoke to the man in linen, go in among the wheels beneath the cherubim. Fill your hands with burning coals from among the cherubim and scatter them over the city. And the man went in. The cherubim were standing on the south side of the temple as the man entered, and the inner court was filled with a cloud. In Ezekiel 10:3-5, the glory of the Lord rose from above the cherubim and moved to the threshold of the temple. The cloud filled the temple, and the court was full of the radiance of the Lord's glory. The sound of the cherubim's wings could be heard even in the outer court, like the voice of God Almighty when he speaks. The man in linen stood beside one of the wheels. In Ezekiel 10:6-8, one of the cherubim reached out to the fire among them, took some coals, and placed them in the hands of the man in linen, who took them and went out. Under the wings of the cherubim could be seen what looked like human hands. Ezekiel observed the wheels beside the cherubim. In Ezekiel 10:9-14, there were 4 wheels beside the cherubim, 1 wheel beside each cherub. The wheels looked like topaz. All 4 had the same appearance, as if one wheel were inside another. When they moved, they could go in any of the 4 directions without turning. The cherubim were covered with eyes all over their bodies, on their backs, hands, wings, and even on the wheels. Each cherub had 4 faces. The first was the face of a cherub, the second that of a human, the third of a lion, and the fourth of an eagle. Then the cherubim rose upward. In Ezekiel 10:15-17, Ezekiel recognized them as the same living creatures he had seen by the Kibar River. When the cherubim moved, the wheels beside them moved. When the cherubim spread their wings to rise from the ground, the wheels stayed right beside them. When the cherubim stopped, the wheels stopped. When they rose, the wheels rose with them, because the spirit of the living creatures was in them. Then the glory of the Lord departed from the temple. In Ezekiel 10:18-22, it moved away from the threshold of the temple and stopped above. The cherubim spread their wings and rose up from the ground with the wheels beside them. They stopped at the entrance to the east gate of the Lord's temple, and the glory of the God of Israel was above them. Ezekiel confirmed, they were the same living creatures I had seen by the Kibar River. After that, the Spirit lifted Ezekiel and brought him to the east gate of the Lord's temple. In Ezekiel 11:1-4, there were 25 men there, among them Jazaniah and Pelatiah, leaders of the people. God said to Ezekiel, "These are the men who are plotting evil and giving wicked advice in this city. They say, 'Should we be building houses soon? This city is the pot and we are the meat. Therefore prophesy against them.'" The Spirit of the Lord came upon Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 11:5-12, God commanded, "Say, 'This is what the Lord says. This is what you are saying, house of Israel, but I know what goes through your minds. They had killed many people in the city and filled the streets with the dead. So God said, the dead you have left there are the meat, and this city is the pot, but I will drive you out of it. They feared the sword, and the sword would come upon them. They would be taken out of the city and handed over to foreigners. You will not be the meat within the pot. I will judge you at the borders of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord. While Ezekiel was still prophesying, something dramatic happened. In Ezekiel 11:13, Pelatiah, son of Benaiah, died. Ezekiel fell face down and cried out, "Ah, sovereign Lord, will you completely destroy the remnant of Israel?" God then responded with a message of hope. In Ezekiel 11:14-16, he said, "Son of man, concerning your fellow exiles, your relatives, and the whole house of Israel, all of them, the people of Jerusalem are saying, they are far from the Lord. This land has been given to us as our possession." But God saw it differently. Even though he had scattered them among the nations, he said, "I have been a sanctuary to them for a little while in the countries where they have gone." God promised restoration. In Ezekiel 11:17-20, he declared, "I will gather you from the nations and bring you back from the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give you back the land of Israel. They would remove all their detestable and abominable things. I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit within them. I will remove from them their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. Then they would follow God's decrees, and they would be his people, and he would be their God. As for those who clung to their detestable practices, their punishment was certain." In Ezekiel 11:21, God declared, "I will bring down on their own heads what they have done." Then the cherubim, with the wheels beside them, spread their wings, while the glory of the God of Israel hovered above them. In Ezekiel 11:22-23, the glory of the Lord rose from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it. It was as if God's presence was leaving Jerusalem, abandoning the temple because of the people's idolatry and rebellion. Afterward, the Spirit lifted Ezekiel and brought him back to the exiles in Babylon, in the vision given by the Spirit of God. In Ezekiel 11:24-25, the vision I had seen went up from me. Ezekiel then told the exiles everything the Lord had shown him. He shared terrifying visions of judgment, but also promises of hope and future restoration. The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel again. In Ezekiel 12:1-2, God said, "Son of man, you are living among a rebellious people. They have eyes to see, but do not see, and ears to hear, but do not hear, for they are a rebellious people." The issue wasn't that they couldn't understand, it was that they refused to. So God asked Ezekiel to do something unusual to get their attention. In Ezekiel 12:3-4, the Lord commanded, "Therefore, son of man, pack your belongings for exile, and during the day in their sight leave as if you were going into exile. Go to another place in their sight, perhaps they will understand, though they are a rebellious people." Ezekiel obeyed exactly as God instructed. During the day, he brought out his belongings as if preparing for exile. Then, as described in Ezekiel 12:5-6, in the evening, in their sight, dig through the wall with your hands and go out through it. As they watch, carry your belongings on your shoulders and leave in the dark. Cover your face so you cannot see the land, for I have made you a sign to the house of Israel. Ezekiel did exactly what the Lord told him. The next morning, the people asked what he was doing. In Ezekiel 12:8-11, the Lord said, "Tell them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. This prophecy concerns the prince in Jerusalem and all the Israelites who are there. Say to them, I am a sign to you. As I have done, so it will be done to them. They will go into exile as captives." What Ezekiel had done was a warning to Jerusalem's prince. In Ezekiel 12:13, God explained, The prince among them will put his belongings on his shoulders at dusk and leave. They will dig through the wall to bring him out. He will cover his face so he cannot see the land. I will spread my net for him, and he will be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon, the land of the Chaldeans, but he will not see it. And there he will die. This prophecy was fulfilled when King Zedekiah tried to escape from Jerusalem during the Babylonian siege, but was captured. The Babylonians killed his sons before his eyes, then gouged out his eyes and took him in chains to Babylon. God explained that he would scatter the people, as we read in Ezekiel 12:14-16. I will scatter to the winds all who are around him, his staff and all his troops, and I will pursue them with drawn sword. They will know that I am the Lord when I disperse them among the nations and scatter them through the countries. But I will spare a few of them from the sword, famine, and plague, so that in the nations where they go, they may acknowledge all their detestable practices. Then they will know that I am the Lord. To show the fear that would come upon the people, God commanded another sign. In Ezekiel 12:17-20, he said, Eat your food trembling with fear, and drink your water with anxiety and despair. Say to the people of the land, this is what the sovereign Lord says about those living in Jerusalem and in the land of Israel. They will eat their food in anxiety and drink their water in despair, for their land will be stripped of everything in it because of the violence of all who live there. The people had a saying, the days drag on, and every vision comes to nothing. But in Ezekiel 12:21-25, God said, I'm going to put an end to this proverb, and it will no longer be quoted in Israel. Say to them, the days are near when every vision will be fulfilled, for there will be no more false visions or flattering divinations among the people of Israel. Some were saying that Ezekiel's visions were about a distant future. But in Ezekiel 12:26-28, God responded, the word I speak will be fulfilled without delay. For in your days, you rebellious people, I will fulfill whatever I say, declares the sovereign Lord. The problem wasn't just that the people refused to believe true prophecies. There were also false prophets deceiving them. In Ezekiel 13:1-3, God said, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel who are now prophesying. Say to those who prophesy out of their own imagination, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says, woe to the foolish prophets who follow their own spirit and have seen nothing. These false prophets were like foxes among ruins. In Ezekiel 13:4-7, God compares them. Your prophets, Israel, are like foxes among ruins. You have not gone up to repair the gaps in the wall for the people of Israel, so that it will stand firm in battle on the day of the Lord. Their visions are false, and their divinations a lie. Even though the Lord has not sent them, they say, the Lord declares, and expect him to fulfill their words. God was furious with these false prophets. In Ezekiel 13:8-9, he declared, Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, because of your false words and lying visions, I am against you, declares the sovereign Lord. My hand will be against the prophets who see false visions and utter lying divinations. They will not belong to the council of my people, or be listed in the records of Israel, nor will they enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am the sovereign Lord. These false prophets were like builders of weak walls. In Ezekiel 13:10-12, God explains, because they lead my people astray, saying, peace, when there is no peace. And because when a flimsy wall is built, they cover it with whitewash. Tell those who cover it with whitewash that it is going to fall. Rain will pour down in torrents, and I will send hailstones hurtling down, and violent winds will burst forth. God would completely destroy the wall of the false prophets. In Ezekiel 13:13-16, he said, Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, In my wrath I will unleash a violent wind, and in My anger, hailstones and torrents of rain will fall with destructive fury. I will tear down the wall you have covered with whitewash and level it to the ground so that its foundation will be laid bare. When it falls, you will be destroyed in it, and you will know that I am the Lord. There were also false prophetesses, deceiving the people. In Ezekiel 13:17-19, God said, "Now, son of man, set your face against the daughters of your people who prophesy out of their own imagination. Prophesy against them and say, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to the women who sew magic charms on all their wrists and make veils of various lengths for their heads in order to ensnare lives. Will you ensnare the lives of my people, but preserve your own?'" These women were profaning God for a handful of barley and scraps of bread. As written in Ezekiel 13:19, "You have profaned me among my people for a few handfuls of barley and scraps of bread. By lying to my people who listen to lies, you kill those who should not have died and spare those who should not live." God promised to deliver his people from their traps. In Ezekiel 13:20-23, he declared, "Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against your magic charms with which you ensnare people like birds, and I will tear them from your arms. I will set free the people that you ensnare like birds. I will tear off your veils and save my people from your hands, and they will no longer fall prey to your power. Then you will know that I am the Lord." Ezekiel continued receiving revelations from God about the fate of Jerusalem. This time, the message came through the image of the vine. In Ezekiel 15:1-3, God asked, "Son of man, how is the wood of a vine better than that of a branch from any of the trees in the forest? Is wood ever taken from it to make anything useful? Do they make pegs from it to hang things on?" The answer is obvious. Vine wood is useless for building. It's too weak. Its only value is in producing grapes. In Ezekiel 15:4-5, God continues, "And after it is thrown on the fire as fuel, and the fire burns both ends and chars the middle, is it then useful for anything? If it was not useful for anything while it was whole, how much less can it be made into something useful when the fire has burned and charred it?" This was a direct message about Jerusalem. In Ezekiel 15:6-8, God explained, "Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. As I have given the wood of the vine among the trees of the forest as fuel for the fire, so will I treat the people living in Jerusalem. I will set my face against them. Although they have come out of the fire will yet consume them. And when I set my face against them, you will know that I am the Lord. I will make the land desolate because they have been unfaithful, declares the sovereign Lord. Jerusalem was like a vine that had stopped bearing fruit. Without fruit, the vine has no value. Its wood is useless for any other purpose. In the same way, Jerusalem, having abandoned its purpose of serving God, would now face the fire of judgment. God then told Ezekiel a powerful story about Jerusalem, comparing her to an abandoned child whom he rescued. In Ezekiel 16:1-5, he begins, "Son of man, confront Jerusalem with her detestable practices and say, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says to Jerusalem. Your ancestry and birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. On the day you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to make you clean, nor were you rubbed with salt or wrapped in cloths. No one looked on you with pity or had compassion enough to do any of these things for you. Rather, you were thrown out into the open field, for on the day you were born, you were despised.'" This was a vivid image, a newborn baby, filthy and abandoned to die. But then God came near. In Ezekiel 16:6-7, he said, "Then I passed by and saw you kicking about in your blood, and as you lay there in your blood, I said to you, 'Live.' I made you grow like a plant of the field. You grew and developed and became the most beautiful of jewels. Your breasts were formed and your hair had grown, yet you were stark naked. When Jerusalem reached the age for marriage, God made a covenant with her. In Ezekiel 16:8-14, he explained, "Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your nakedness. I gave you my solemn oath and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord, and you became mine. God cared for her like a loving husband. I bathed you with water and washed the blood from you and put ointments on you. I clothed you with embroidered garments and put fine leather sandals on you. I dressed you in fine linen and covered you with costly garments. I adorned you with jewelry. I put bracelets on your arms and a necklace around your neck, a ring on your nose, earrings on your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head. She ate the finest food and became very beautiful, fit for royalty. Her beauty became famous among the nations because of the splendor God had given her. Your beauty was perfect because I had bestowed my splendor on you, declares the sovereign Lord. But then something terrible happened. In Ezekiel 16:15-19, God lamented, "But you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute. You lavished your favors on anyone who passed by, and your beauty became his. You took some of your garments to make gaudy high places where you carried on your prostitution. You took my fine jewelry of gold and silver I had given you, and made for yourself male idols, and engaged in prostitution with them. You took your embroidered clothes and put them on them, and you offered my oil and incense before them. Also, the food I gave you, the flour, olive oil, and honey I provided, you offered as a fragrant incense before them." Jerusalem forgot her humble beginnings and how God had rescued her. In Ezekiel 16:20-22, God continued, "And you took your sons and daughters whom you bore to me and sacrificed them as food to the idols. Was your prostitution not enough? You slaughtered my children and sacrificed them to the idols. In all your detestable practices and your prostitution, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, kicking about in your blood." Jerusalem built pagan shrines everywhere. In Ezekiel 16:23-29, God described, "Woe, woe to you, declares the sovereign Lord. In addition to all your other wickedness, you built a mound for yourself and made a lofty shrine in every public square. At every street corner, you built your lofty shrines and degraded your beauty, spreading your legs with increasing promiscuity to anyone who passed by. She prostituted herself with the Egyptians, the Assyrians, and the Babylonians. You engaged in prostitution with the Egyptians, your neighbors with large genitals, and aroused my anger with your increasing promiscuity. You also prostituted yourself with the Assyrians because you were insatiable, and even after that you still were not satisfied. Then you increased your promiscuity to include Babylonia, a land of merchants, but even with this you were not satisfied." God questioned how her heart could be so weak. In Ezekiel 16:30-34, he asked, "How weak-willed you are, declares the sovereign Lord, when you do all these things, acting like a brazen prostitute. When you built your mounds at every street corner and made your lofty shrines in every public square, you were unlike a prostitute because you scorned payment. In fact, Jerusalem was worse than a common prostitute. You adulterous wife. You prefer strangers to your own husband. All prostitutes receive gifts, but you give gifts to all your lovers, bribing them to come to you from everywhere for your illicit favors. Because of this, judgment would come." In Ezekiel 16:35-43, God declared, "Therefore you prostitute, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says, because you poured out your lust and exposed your naked body in your promiscuity with your lovers, and because of all your detestable idols, and because you gave them your children's blood, therefore I'm going to gather all your lovers with whom you found pleasure, those you loved as well as those you hated. I will gather them against you from all around and will strip you in front of them, and they will see you stark naked. the punishment would be harsh. I will sentence you to the punishment of women who commit adultery and who shed blood. I will bring on you the blood vengeance of my wrath and jealous anger. Then I will deliver you into the hands of your lovers, and they will tear down your mounds and destroy your lofty shrines. They will strip you of your clothes and take your fine jewelry and leave you stark naked. They will bring a mob against you who will stone you and hack you to pieces with their swords. But all of this had a purpose. In Ezekiel 16:59-63, God revealed that his love was not over. Yet I will remember the covenant I made with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish an everlasting covenant with you. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed. I will establish my covenant with you, and you will know that I am the Lord. Then, when I make atonement for you for all you have done, you will remember and be ashamed, and never again open your mouth because of your humiliation, declares the Sovereign Lord. God then told Ezekiel another story using imagery from nature. In Ezekiel 17:1-2, he said, "Son of man, present a riddle and tell a parable to the people of Israel." The story was about two eagles and a vine. In Ezekiel 17:3-6, God began, "Say to them, this is what the Sovereign Lord says. A great eagle with powerful wings, long feathers, and full plumage of varied colors came to Lebanon. It took hold of the top of a cedar and plucked off its highest shoot. He carried it off to a land of merchants, where he planted it in a city of traders. He also took some of the seed from the land and planted it in fertile soil. He placed it like a willow by abundant water, and it sprouted and became a low, spreading vine. Its branches turned toward the eagle, and its roots remained under it. So it became a vine and produced branches and put out leafy growth." Then a second eagle enters the scene. In Ezekiel 17:7-8, God continued, "But there was another, great eagle with powerful wings and thick plumage. And this vine now sent out its roots toward him from the bed where it had been planted and stretched out its branches to him for water. It had been planted in good soil by abundant water so that it would produce branches, bear fruit, and become a splendid vine." God then asked if this vine would thrive. In Ezekiel 17:9-10, he questioned, "Say to them, this is what the Sovereign Lord says. Will it thrive? Will it not be uprooted and its fruit torn off so that it withers? All its new growth will wither. It will not take a strong arm or many people to pull it up by the roots. Even if it is transplanted, will it thrive? Will it not wither completely? When the east wind strikes it, wither away in the plot where it grew." This parable had a very clear meaning tied to the political events of the time. In Ezekiel 17:11-15, God explained, "Then the word of the Lord came to me. Say to this rebellious nation, do you not know what these things mean? Say to them, the king of Babylon went to Jerusalem and took its king and officials and brought them back with him to Babylon. Then he took a member of the royal family and made a treaty with him, putting him under oath. He also carried away the leading men of the land, so that the kingdom would be brought low, unable to rise again, surviving only by keeping his covenant. The first eagle was the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. He took King Jehoiakim of Judah into exile, along with many of the nobles. Then he installed Zedekiah, Jehoiakim's uncle, as a vassal king under oath. But Zedekiah rebelled. In Ezekiel 17:15 it says, "But the king rebelled against him by sending his envoys to Egypt to get horses and a large army. Will he succeed? Will he who does such things escape? Will he break the treaty and yet escape?" God promised that Zedekiah's betrayal would not go unpunished. In Ezekiel 17:16-21, he declared, "As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, he will die in Babylon, in the land of the king who put him on the throne, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke. Pharaoh with his mighty army And great hoard will be of no help to him in war, when ramps are built, and siege works erected to destroy many lives. He despised the oath by breaking the covenant. Because he had given his hand in pledge, and yet did all these things, he shall not escape. I will spread my net for him, and he will be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon, and execute judgment upon him there, because he was unfaithful to me. All his fleeing troops will fall by the sword, and the survivors will be scattered to the winds. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken. However, after the judgment came hope. In Ezekiel 17:22-24, God promised, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will take a shoot from the very top of a cedar and plant it. I will break off a tender sprig from its topmost shoots and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. On the high mountain of Israel I will plant it. It will produce branches and bear fruit and become a splendid cedar. Birds of every kind will nest in it. They will find shelter in the shade of its branches. All the trees of the forest will know that I, the Lord, bring down the tall tree and make the low tree grow tall. I dry up the green tree and make the dry tree flourish. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will do it." The people of Israel had a popular proverb: "The parents eat sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge." They believed they were suffering for the sins of previous generations, not for their own failings. In Ezekiel 18:1-4, God challenged that idea. "The word of the Lord came to me. What do you people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The parents eat sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, you will no longer quote this proverb in Israel, for everyone belongs to me, the parent as well as the child. Both alike belong to me. The one who sins is the one who will die." God then presented several scenarios to show that each person is accountable for their own choices. In Ezekiel 18:5-9, he describes a righteous man. Suppose there is a righteous man who does what is just and right. He does not eat at the mountain shrines or look to the idols of Israel. He does not defile his neighbor's wife or sleep with a woman during her period. He does not oppress anyone, but returns what he took in pledge for a loan. He does not commit robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and provides clothing for the naked. He does not lend at interest or take a profit from others. He withholds his hand from injustice and judges fairly between one person and another. He follows my decrees and faithfully keeps my laws. That man is righteous. He will surely live, declares the sovereign Lord. But what if this righteous man has a violent son? In Ezekiel 18:10-13, God continues, "Suppose he has a son who is violent, who sheds blood, or does any of these other things, though the father has done none of them. He eats at the mountain shrines. He defiles his neighbor's wife. He oppresses the poor and needy. He commits robbery. He does not return what he took in pledge. He looks to idols. He does detestable things. He lends at interest and takes profit. Will such a man live? He will not. Because he has done all these detestable things, he is to be put to death. His blood will be on his own head." What if this wicked man has a son who sees his father's sins and chooses not to follow in his footsteps? In Ezekiel 18:14-18, God explains, "But suppose this son has a son who sees all the sins his father commits, and though he sees them, he does not do such things. He does not eat at the mountain shrines or look to the idols of Israel. He does not defile his neighbor's wife. He does not oppress anyone or require a pledge for a loan. He does not commit robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and provides clothing for the naked. He withholds his hand from sin and does not lend at interest or take excessive interest. He keeps my laws and follows my decrees. He will not die for his father's sin. He will surely live." The message is clear. The soul who sins is the one who will die. The son will not bear the guilt of the father, nor will the father bear the guilt of the son. The righteousness of the righteous will be credited to them, and the wickedness of the wicked will be charged against them. God also made it clear that people can change their destiny through repentance. In Ezekiel 18:21-23, he says, "But if a wicked person turns away from all the sins they have committed, and keeps all my decrees, and does what is just and right, they will surely live. They will not die. None of the offenses they have committed will be remembered against them. Because of the righteous things they have done, they will live. Do I take any pleasure in the death of the wicked, declares the sovereign Lord. Rather, am I not pleased when they turn from their ways and live? Likewise, a righteous person can turn away from righteousness." In Ezekiel 18:24, God warns, "But if a righteous person turns from their righteousness and commits sin, doing the same detestable things the wicked do, will they live? None of the righteous things they have done will be remembered. Because of the unfaithfulness they are guilty of, and because of the sins they have committed, they will die." The people claimed that God's ways were unjust, but in reality, it was their own ways that were wrong. In Ezekiel 18:25-29, God responds, "Yet you say, 'The way of the Lord is not just.' Hear you Israelites, is my way unjust? Is it not your ways that are unjust? If a righteous person turns from their righteousness and commits sin, they will die for it. Because of the sin they have committed, they will die. But if a wicked person turns away from the wickedness they have committed and does what is just and right, they will save their life. Because they consider all the offenses they have committed and turn away from them, they will surely live. They will not die. Yet the Israelites say, 'The way of the Lord is not just.' Are my ways unjust, people of Israel? Is it not your ways that are unjust?" The chapter closes with a passionate call to repentance. In Ezekiel 18:30-32, God pleads, "Therefore, I will judge each of you according to your own ways, declares the sovereign Lord. Repent, turn away from all your offenses, then sin will not be your downfall. Rid yourselves of all the offenses you have committed, and get a new heart and a new spirit. Why will you die, people of Israel? For I take no pleasure in the death of anyone, declares the sovereign Lord. Repent and live." God then instructed Ezekiel to sing a lament for the princes of Israel. In Ezekiel 19:1-4, the prophet sings, "Take up a lament concerning the princes of Israel and say, 'What a lioness was your mother among the lions. She lay down among them and reared her cubs. She brought up one of her cubs, and he became a strong lion. He learned to tear the prey, and he devoured people. The nations heard about him, and he was trapped in their pit. They led him with hooks to the land of Egypt.'" This first young lion was likely King Jehoahaz, who was taken prisoner to Egypt by Pharaoh Necho after reigning only 3 months. When the lioness, representing the nation of Judah, saw that her hope was lost, she raised another cub. The lament continues in Ezekiel 19:5-9. When she saw her hope unfulfilled, her expectation gone, she took another of her cubs and made him a strong lion. He prowled among the lions, for he was now a strong lion. He learned to tear the prey, and he devoured people. He broke down their strongholds and devastated their towns. The land and all who were in it were terrified by his roaring. Then the nations came against him, those from regions all around. They spread their net for him, and he was trapped in their pit. With hooks they pulled him into a cage and brought him to the king of Babylon. They put him in prison, so his roar would be heard no longer on the mountains of Israel. This second young lion is most likely King Jehoiakim, who was taken captive to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. Then the imagery shifts from a lion to a vine. In Ezekiel 19:10-14, the lament continues. "Your mother was like a vine in your vineyard planted by the water. It was fruitful and full of branches because of abundant water. Its branches were strong, fit for a ruler's scepter. It towered high above the thick foliage, conspicuous for its height and for its many branches. But it was uprooted in fury and thrown to the ground. The east wind made it shrivel, stripped off its fruit. Its strong branches withered and were consumed by fire. Now it is planted in the desert, in a dry and thirsty land. Fire spread from one of its main branches and consumed its fruit. No strong branch is left on it fit for a ruler's scepter. This is a lament, and is to be used as a lament. In the 9th year of exile, on the 10th day of the 10th month, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 24:1-5, God says, "Son of man, record this date, this very date, because the king of Babylon has laid siege to Jerusalem this very day. Tell this rebellious people a parable and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Put on the cooking pot, put it on, and pour water into it. Put into it the pieces of meat, all the choice pieces, the leg and the shoulder. Fill it with the best of these bones. Take the pick of the flock. Pile wood beneath it for the bones. Bring it to a boil, and cook the bones in it." This pot symbolized Jerusalem under siege. In Ezekiel 24:6-8, God explains further, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says, Woe to the city of bloodshed, to the pot now encrusted, whose deposit will not go away. Take the meat out piece by piece, in whatever order it comes. For the blood she shed is in her midst. She poured it on the bare rock. She did not pour it on the ground, where the dust would cover it. To stir up wrath and take revenge, I put her blood on the bare rock so that it would not be covered. The judgment would be severe." In Ezekiel 24:9-13, God declared, "Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, Woe to the city of bloodshed! I too will pile the wood high." So heap on the wood and kindle the fire, cook the meat well, mixing in the spices, and let the bones be charred. Then set the empty pot on the coals till it becomes hot and its copper glows, so that its impurities may be melted and its corrosion burned away. It has frustrated all efforts. Its heavy corrosion has not been removed, not even by fire. The corruption of Jerusalem ran so deep that not even the fire of judgment could fully cleanse it. In Ezekiel 24:13-14, God continued, "Now your impurity is lewdness, because I tried to cleanse you, but you would not be cleansed from your impurity. You will not be clean again until my wrath against you has subsided. I, the Lord, have spoken. The time has come, and I will act. I will not hold back. I will not have pity, nor will I relent. You will be judged according to your conduct and your actions, declares the sovereign Lord." Then something deeply personal and painful happened in Ezekiel's life. In Ezekiel 24:15-17, God said, "The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, with one blow I am about to take away from you the delight of your eyes. Yet do not lament or weep or shed any tears. Groan quietly, do not mourn for the dead. Keep your turban fastened and your sandals on your feet. Do not cover your mustache or eat the customary food of mourners." The next morning, Ezekiel spoke to the people, and that evening his wife died. In Ezekiel 24:18, he recounts, "So I spoke to the people in the morning, and in the evening my wife died. The next morning I did as I had been commanded." The people were confused by Ezekiel's behavior. In Ezekiel 24:19-21, they asked, "Then the people asked me, 'Won't you tell us what these things have to do with us? Why are you acting like this?' So I said to them, 'The word of the Lord came to me. Say to the people of Israel, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am about to desecrate my sanctuary, the stronghold in which you take pride, the delight of your eyes, the object of your affection.'" Just as Ezekiel lost his beloved wife suddenly and was not allowed to mourn her publicly, the people of Jerusalem would lose their treasured temple and would not have the chance to grieve properly. In Ezekiel 24:21-24, God explained, "The sons and daughters you left behind in Jerusalem will fall by the sword, and you will do as I have done. You will not cover your mustache or eat the customary food of mourners. You will keep your turbans. on your heads and your sandals on your feet. You will not mourn or weep, but will waste away because of your sins and groan among yourselves. Ezekiel will be assigned to you. You will do just as he has done. When this happens, you will know that I am the sovereign Lord. And on that very day, while Ezekiel remained silent in his personal grief, the final word of this section of prophecy came. In Ezekiel 24:25-27, God concluded, "And you, son of man, on the day I take away from them their stronghold, their joy and glory, the delight of their eyes, their heart's desire, and their sons and daughters as well, on that day a fugitive will come to tell you the news. At that time your mouth will be opened, you will speak with him, and will no longer be silent. So you will be assigned to them, and they will know that I am the Lord." After declaring judgment on his own people, God turned his attention to the neighboring nations that had mocked and rejoiced over Jerusalem's downfall. In Ezekiel 25:1-3, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel. "Son of man, set your face against the Ammonites and prophesy against them. Say to the Ammonites, hear the word of the sovereign Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says, because you said, 'Aha,' over my sanctuary when it was desecrated, and over the land of Israel when it was laid waste, and over the people of Judah when they went into exile." The Ammonites were distant relatives of the Israelites, descendants of Lot, Abraham's nephew. But instead of showing compassion for their suffering kin, they clapped their hands and celebrated. That stirred God's anger. Therefore, God continued in Ezekiel 25:4-5, "I am going to give you to the people of the east as a possession. They will set up their camps and pitch their tents among you. They will eat your fruit and drink your milk. I will turn Rabbah into a pasture for camels and Ammon into a resting place for sheep. Then you will know that I am the Lord." The punishment would be harsh because the Ammonites' joy at Israel's tragedy was cruel and petty. In Ezekiel 25:6-7, God said, "Because you clapped your hands and stamped your feet, rejoicing with all the malice of your heart against the land of Israel, therefore I will stretch out my hand against you and give you as plunder to the nations. I will wipe you out from among the nations and exterminate you from the countries. I will destroy you, and you will know that I am the Lord." Then God turned to Moab, another nation descended from Lot. In Ezekiel 25:8-11 he said, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because Moab and Seir said, 'Look, Judah has become like all the other nations, therefore I will expose the flank of Moab, beginning at its frontier towns, Beth-Jeshemoth, Baal-meon, and Kiriathim, the glory of that land. I will give Moab along with the Ammonites to the people of the east as a possession, so that the Ammonites will not be remembered among the nations, and I will inflict punishment on Moab. Then they will know that I am the Lord." The Moabites made the mistake of thinking that Israel was nothing special, that it was just like all the other nations. They didn't understand that even in punishment, Israel was still God's chosen and beloved people. Then came the turn of Edom, descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother. In Ezekiel 25:12-14, God declared, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because Edom took revenge on Judah and became very guilty by doing so. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will stretch out my hand against Edom and kill both man and beast. I will lay it waste, and from Teman to Dedan they will fall by the sword. I will take vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people, Israel, and they will deal with Edom in accordance with my anger and my wrath. They will know my vengeance, declares the sovereign Lord." The Edomites not only rejoiced over Judah's downfall, but they actively took revenge on them when they were weak, helping to capture the fugitives and handing them over to the Babylonians. Finally, God spoke about the Philistines, ancient enemies who lived along the Mediterranean coast. In Ezekiel 25:15-17, he declared, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because the Philistines acted in vengeance and took revenge with malice in their hearts, seeking to destroy with everlasting hostility, therefore I will stretch out my hand against the Philistines, and I will cut off the Kerethites and destroy those remaining along the coast. I will carry out great vengeance on them with furious rebukes. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I take vengeance on them. The Philistines had been fighting Israel for centuries, going all the way back to the days of Samson and Samuel. Their hostility was long-standing, and they too seized the opportunity to attack when Judah was at its weakest. Ezekiel then turned his attention to Tyre, the wealthy Phoenician city-state on the Mediterranean coast. Tyre was a commercial powerhouse with a famous harbor protected by towering walls. In Ezekiel 26:1-2, we read, "In the 11th year, on the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, because Tyre has said of thee, Jerusalem, Aha, the gate to the nations is broken, and its doors have swung open to me. Now that she lies in ruins, I will prosper." Just like the other nations, Tyre saw Jerusalem's fall as a business opportunity. With the city destroyed, Tyre expected to absorb its trade routes and become even richer. But God had other plans. In Ezekiel 26:3-6, he announced, "Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, I am against you, Tyre, and I will bring many nations against you, like the sea casting up its waves. They will destroy the walls of Tyre and pull down her towers. I will scrape away her rubble and make her a bare rock. Out in the sea she will become a place to spread fishing nets, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. She will become plunder for the nations, and her settlements on the mainland will be ravaged by the sword. Then they will know that I am the Lord." Tyre was composed of two parts, a coastal city and its crown jewel, an island fortress about 800 meters offshore. God described how the attack would unfold. In Ezekiel 26:7-14, he said, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says, From the north I am bringing against Tyre Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, king of kings, with horses and chariots, with horsemen and a mighty army. He will kill your settlements on the mainland with the sword. He will set up siege works against you, build a ramp and raise a shield wall. He will direct the blows of his battering rams against your walls and demolish your towers with his weapons. His horses will be so many that their dust will cover you. Your walls will tremble at the noise of the cavalry, wagons, and chariots. When he enters your gates, as men enter a city whose walls have been breached, the destruction would be total. The hooves of his horses will trample all your streets. He will kill your people with the sword, and your strong pillars will fall to the ground. They will plunder your wealth and loot your merchandise. They will break down your walls and demolish your fine houses, and throw your stones, timber, and rubble into the sea. I will put an end to your noisy songs, and the music of your harps will be heard no more. I will make you a bare rock, and you will become a place to spread fishing nets. You will never be rebuilt, for I, the Lord, have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. The fall of Tyre would send shockwaves throughout the ancient world. In Ezekiel 26:15-18, God continued, "This is what the sovereign Lord says to Tyre. Will not the coastlands tremble at the sound of your fall? When the wounded groan and the slaughter takes place in your midst, then all the princes of the sea will step down from their thrones and lay aside their robes and take off their embroidered garments. Clothed with terror, they will sit on the ground, trembling every moment, appalled at you. Then they will raise a lament for you and say to you, 'How you are destroyed, city of renown, peopled by men of the sea, famous city once mighty on the sea. You and your inhabitants imposed terror on all who lived there.' The nations would be stunned at Tyre's fate." In Ezekiel 26:19-21, God concluded, "When I make you a desolate city, like cities no longer inhabited, and when I bring the deep over you and the great waters cover you, then I will bring you down with those who go down to the pit, to the people of old. I will make you dwell in the earth below, as in ancient ruins, with those who go down to the pit, and you will not return or take your place in the land of the living. I will bring you to a horrible end, and you will be no more. You will be sought, but you will never again be found, declares the sovereign Lord. Ezekiel then sang a lament over Tyre, comparing her to a magnificent ship. In Ezekiel 27:1-3, he began, "The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, take up a lament concerning Tyre. Say to Tyre, situated at the gateway to the sea, merchant of peoples on many coastlands, this is what the sovereign Lord says. You say, Tyre, I am perfect in beauty. This ship city was built with the finest materials from around the world." In Ezekiel 27:4-7, Ezekiel described, "Your domain was on the high seas. Your builders brought your beauty to perfection. They made all your timbers of juniper from Senir. They took a cedar from Lebanon to make a mast for you. Of oaks from Bashan they made your oars. Of cypress wood from the coasts of Cyprus they made your deck, adorned with ivory. Fine embroidered linen from Egypt was your sail, and served as your banner. Your awnings were of blue and purple from the coasts of Elisha. Her crew came from renowned maritime cities, and her warriors were mercenaries from many nations." In Ezekiel 27:8-11, "Men of Sidon and Arvad were your oarsmen. Your skilled men, Tyre, were aboard as your sailors. Veteran craftsmen of Byblos were on board as shipwrights to seal your seams. All the ships of the sea and their sailors came alongside to trade for your wares. Men of Persia, Lydia, and Put served as warriors in your army. They hung their shields and helmets on your walls, bringing you splendor. Men of Arvad and Helek guarded your ramparts, and men of Gammad were in your towers. They hung their shields. Around your walls, they brought your beauty to perfection. Tyre traded with nations from across the known world." In Ezekiel 27:12-24, the prophet listed dozens of trade partners and the goods they brought. Tarshish, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, Beth Togarmah, Dodan, Aram, Judah, Israel, Damascus, Vedan, Javan, Uzal, Dedan, Arabia, Sheba, Ramah, Haran, Cana, Eden, Assyria, and Kilmad. They brought silver, iron, tin, lead, slaves, horses, mules, ivory, ebony, rubies, fine fabrics, wine, wool, spices, gold, perfumes, and much more. Ships of Tarshish served as carriers for your merchandise. You were filled with heavy cargo, and glorified in the heart of the seas. Your oarsmen took you out to the high seas, Ezekiel said in 27:25-26. But the east wind will break you to pieces in the heart of the seas. Ezekiel then described the shipwreck of this great vessel in Ezekiel 27:27-36. Your wealth, merchandise and wares, your sailors, your pilots and caulkers, your merchants and all your warriors within you, along with your entire crew, will sink into the heart of the sea on the day of your shipwreck. The coastlands will tremble at the sound of the cry of your pilots. All who handle the oars will abandon their ships. The mariners and all seafaring men will stand on shore. They will raise their voice and cry bitterly over you. They will throw dust on their heads and roll in ashes. They will shave their heads because of you and put on sackcloth. They will weep over you with anguish of soul and bitter mourning. The merchants who once traded with Tyre would be horrified by her fall. Their kings will shudder with horror at you. Their faces will be distorted with fear. The merchants among the nations will hiss at you. You will come to a horrible end and will be no more. Ezekiel concluded in 27:36. But God wasn't finished with Tyre. He now turned directly to its ruler. In Ezekiel 28:1-2 we read, "The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, say to the ruler of Tyre, this is what the sovereign Lord says. In the pride of your heart you say, I am a god. I sit on the throne of a god in the heart of the seas. But you are a mere mortal and not a god, though you think you are as wise as a god." The king of Tyre had grown so powerful and wealthy that he began to think of himself as divine. Surrounded by water and protected by strong walls, out in the sea, he felt untouchable, like a god. God acknowledged the ruler's exceptional wisdom and commercial prowess. In Ezekiel 28:3-5, he said, "Are you wiser than Daniel? Is no secret hidden from you? By your wisdom and understanding, you have gained wealth for yourself and amassed gold and silver in your treasuries. By your great skill in trading, you have increased your wealth, and because of your wealth, your heart has grown proud. But that wisdom had bred pride, and pride led to arrogance." In Ezekiel 28:6-10, God declared judgment. "Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you think you are wise as a god, I will bring foreigners against you, the most ruthless of nations. They will draw their swords against your beauty and wisdom and pierce your shining splendor. They will bring you down to the pit, and you will die a violent death in the heart of the seas. Will you then say, 'I am a god,' in the presence of those who kill you? You will be but a mortal, not a god, in the hands of those who slay you. You will die the death of the uncircumcised at the hands of foreigners. I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord." Ezekiel then launched into a remarkable lament for the king of Tyre, using language that seems to transcend a mere human being. In Ezekiel 28:11-15, the word of the Lord came to me, "Son of man, take up a lament concerning the king of Tyre, and say to him, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you, ruby, topaz, and emerald, chrysolite, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and beryl. Your settings and mountings were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared. You were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. You walked among the fiery stones. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till wickedness was found in you." This language evokes imagery of Eden and heavenly cherubim. Many theologians see in this passage not only a description of Tyre's king, but a mirror of Satan's fall, as if the ruler's pride reflected the original rebellion in heaven. The sin that led to the king's fall was pride born of his wealth and splendor. In Ezekiel 28:16-19, God explained, "Through your widespread trade, you were filled with violence, and you sinned. So I drove you in disgrace from the mount of God, and I expelled you, guardian cherub, from among the fiery stones. Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. So I threw you to the earth. I made a spectacle of you before kings. The punishment would be total and irreversible. By your many sins and dishonest trade, you have desecrated your sanctuaries. So I made a fire come out from you, and it consumed you, and I reduced you to ashes on the ground in the sight of all who were watching. All the nations who knew you are appalled at you. You have come to a horrible end and will be no more." God then turned Ezekiel's attention to another Phoenician city, Sidon, Tyre's trading partner. In Ezekiel 28:20-22, we read, "The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, set your face against Sidon, prophesy against her, and say, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Sidon, and I will display my glory within you. They will know that I am the Lord when I inflict punishment on you and show myself holy within you." Sidon wasn't as powerful as Tyre, but it was still a wealthy and influential city. Like its sister, it had become corrupt and had mocked Israel. The punishment would be severe. In Ezekiel 28:23, God declared, "I will send a plague upon her and make blood flow in her streets. The slain will fall within her with the sword against her on every side. Then they will know that I am the Lord." But the goal of this judgment wasn't just punishment. It was for the nations to recognize God's holiness and for Israel to be restored. In Ezekiel 28, 24, 26, God promised, "No longer will the people of Israel have malicious neighbors who are painful briars and sharp thorns. Then they will know that I am the sovereign Lord. For Israel, restoration would come." This is what the sovereign Lord says. "When I gather the people of Israel from the nations where they have been scattered, I will show myself holy among them in the sight of the nations. Then they will live in their own land, the land I gave to my servant Jacob. They will live there in safety and will build houses and plant vineyards. They will live in safety when I inflict punishment on all their neighbors who maligned them. Then they will know that I am the Lord, their God." Ezekiel then received a series of prophecies against Egypt, the great southern power that had long influenced Israel. In Ezekiel 29, 1-3, we read, "In the 10th year, in the 10th month on the 12th day, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Speak to him and say, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, you great monster lying among your streams. You say, the Nile belongs to me. I made it for myself.'" God compared Pharaoh to a great crocodile, a river monster lying in the Nile. Like the king of Tyre, Pharaoh viewed himself as divine, believing that he had created the Nile, the very lifeline of Egypt. But God would expose the truth. In Ezekiel 29, 4-5, he said, "But I will put hooks in your jaws and make the fish of your streams stick to your scales. I will pull you out from among your streams, with all the fish sticking to your scales. I will leave you in the wilderness, you and all the fish of your streams. You will fall on the open field and not be gathered or buried. I will give you as food to the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky." This arrogant crocodile would be yanked from his cozy aquatic home and cast into the wilderness along with his fish, his troops and followers. There he would be devoured by animals and birds, a grim fate for a self-declared God. The purpose of this judgment was clear. In Ezekiel 29, 6-7, God explained, "Then all who live in Egypt will know that I am the Lord. You have been a staff of reed for the people of Israel. When they grasped you with their hands, you splintered and tore open their shoulders. When they leaned on you, you broke, and their backs were wrenched." Egypt had been an unreliable ally for Israel. When Israel leaned on Egypt for protection against Babylon, Egypt collapsed like a brittle reed, causing Israel even more harm. The judgment would be severe. In Ezekiel 29, 8-12, God declared, "Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will bring a sword against you and kill both man and beast. Egypt will become a desolate wasteland. Then they will know that I am the Lord, because you said, 'The Nile is mine, I made it.' Therefore I am against you and against your streams, and I will make the land of Egypt a ruin and a desolation from Migdol to Aswan, as far as the border of Cush. No foot of man or beast will pass through it. It will be uninhabited for 40 years. Egypt would become desolate for 40 years. Its cities in ruins, its people scattered among the nations. But unlike Tyre, which would be destroyed permanently, Egypt would be partially restored. In Ezekiel 29, 13-16, God promised, "Yet this is what the sovereign Lord says. At the end of 40 years, I will gather the Egyptians from the nations where they were scattered. I will bring them back from captivity and return them to Upper Egypt, the land of their ancestry. There they will be a lowly kingdom. It will be the lowliest of kingdoms and will never again exalt itself above the other nations. I will make it so weak that it will never again rule over the nations. Egypt will no longer be a source of confidence for the people of Israel, but will be a reminder of their sin in turning to her for help. Then they will know that I am the sovereign Lord." God then gave Ezekiel a specific update on how Egypt would be conquered. In Ezekiel 29, 17-20, we read, "In the 27th year, in the first month on the first day, the word of the Lord came to me. "Son of man, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, drove his army in a hard campaign against Tyre. Every head was rubbed bare, and every shoulder made raw. Yet he and his army received no reward from Tyre for the service he rendered against it." God explained that he would give Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar as compensation for his efforts against Tyre. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says: "I'm going to give Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he will carry off its wealth. He will loot and plunder the land as pay for his army. I have given him Egypt as a reward for his efforts, because he and his army worked for me," declares the sovereign Lord. The prophecy ends with a promise for Israel. In Ezekiel 29:21, God stated, "On that day I will make a horn grow for the house of Israel, and I will open your mouth among them. Then they will know that I am the Lord." The word of the Lord came again to Ezekiel concerning Egypt. In Ezekiel 31:3 he said, "Wail and say, 'Alas for that day! For the day is near, the day of the Lord is near, a day of clouds, a time of doom for the nations. A sword will come against Egypt, and anguish will come upon Cush.'" This would be the day of the Lord, a time of divine judgment on the nations, beginning with Egypt. It would be a dreadful day, filled with dark clouds and devastation. Egypt's defeat would be total. In Ezekiel 34:9, God described, "A sword will come against Egypt, and anguish will come upon Cush. When the slain fall in Egypt, her wealth will be carried away and her foundations torn down. Cush, Put, Lud, all Arabia, Libya, and the people of the covenant land will fall by the sword, along with Egypt. Egypt's allies and the nations that relied on her would fall as well. This is what the Lord says: "The allies of Egypt will fall, and her proud strength will fail. From Migdol to Aswan they will fall by the sword within her," declares the sovereign Lord. "They will be desolate among desolate lands, and their cities will lie among ruined cities. Then they will know that I am the Lord, when I set fire to Egypt, and all her helpers are crushed." On that day, messengers would go out to warn distant nations. Messengers will go out from me in ships to frighten Cush out of her complacency. Anguish will take hold of them on the day of Egypt's doom, for it is surely coming. God gave more details about the agent of this destruction. In Ezekiel 30:10-12, he declared, "This is what the sovereign Lord says: I will put an end to the hordes of Egypt by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He and his army, the most ruthless of nations, will be brought in to destroy the land. They will draw their swords against Egypt and fill the land with the slain. I will dry up the streams of the Nile and sell the land to evil men. By the hands of foreigners I will lay waste the land and everything in it. I, the Lord, have spoken." Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, would be God's instrument to punish Egypt. He and his army would crush Egypt's defenses and even dry up the Nile canals, the very source of Egypt's prosperity. God then listed the cities that would be destroyed. In Ezekiel 30:13-19, he said, "This is what the sovereign Lord says: I will destroy the idols and put an end to the images in Memphis. No longer will there be a prince in Egypt, and I will spread fear throughout the land. I will lay waste Pathros, set fire to Zoan, and inflict punishment on Thebes. I will pour out my wrath on Pelusium, the stronghold of Egypt, and wipe out the hordes of Thebes. I will set fire to Egypt. Pelusium will writhe in agony. Thebes will be taken by storm. Memphis will be in constant distress. The young men of Heliopolis and Bubastis will fall by the sword, and the cities will go into captivity. In Tahpanhes the day will be darkened when I break the yoke of Egypt there. Her proud strength will come to an end. She will be covered with clouds, and her villages will go into captivity. So I will execute judgment on Egypt, and they will know that I am the Lord." Shortly after this prophecy, God gave Ezekiel a specific message concerning Pharaoh. In Ezekiel 30:20-26 we read, "In the 11th year, in the first month on the 7th day, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. It has not been bound up to be healed or splinted, so it can hold a sword." God explained that he would continue to weaken Pharaoh. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says, "I am against Pharaoh, king of Egypt. I will break both his arms, the good arm as well as the broken one, and make the sword fall from his hand. I will disperse the Egyptians among the nations and scatter them through the countries. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon and put my sword in his hand, but I will break Pharaoh's arms, and he will groan before him like a mortally wounded man." The contrast between the two rulers would be unmistakable. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, but the arms of Pharaoh will fall limp. Then they will know that I am the Lord, when I put my sword into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he brandishes it against Egypt. I will disperse the Egyptians among the nations and scatter them through the countries. Then they will know that I am the Lord. In the 11th year, God gave Ezekiel another message concerning Egypt, this time comparing it to a great tree. In Ezekiel 31:1-3 we read, "In the 11th year, in the 3rd month on the 1st day, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his hordes, who can be compared to you in majesty? Consider Assyria once, a cedar in Lebanon, with beautiful branches overshadowing the forest. It towered on high, its top above the thick foliage. God used ancient Assyria, already conquered by the Babylonians, as an example for Egypt. Assyria had once been a mighty superpower, towering like a great tree, but had fallen. This tree was magnificent. In Ezekiel 31:4-6, God described, "The waters nourished it. Deep springs made it grow tall. Their streams flowed all around its base and sent their channels to all the trees of the field. So it towered higher than all the trees of the field. Its boughs increased, and its branches grew long, spreading because of abundant water. All the birds of the sky nested in its boughs. All the wild animals gave birth under its branches. All the great nations lived in its shade." Assyria was so vast and powerful that other nations lived in its shade, depending on its strength and protection. It was a tree of unmatched beauty, but despite all its glory, Assyria fell. In Ezekiel 31:7-11, God continued, "It was majestic in beauty, with its spreading boughs, for its roots went down to abundant waters. The cedars in the garden of God could not rival it, nor could the junipers equal its boughs, nor could the plane trees compare with its branches. No tree in the garden of God could match its beauty. I made it beautiful with abundant branches, the envy of all the trees of Eden in the garden of God. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, because it towered on high, lifting its top above the thick foliage, and because it was proud of its height, I gave it into the hands of the ruler of the nations, for him to deal with it according to its wickedness. I cast it aside. Its fall was violent and total." In Ezekiel 31:12-13, God described, "Foreigners, the most ruthless of nations, cut it down and left it. Its boughs fell on the mountains and in all the valleys. Its branches lay broken in all the ravines of the land. All the nations of the earth came out from under its shade and abandoned it. All the birds settled on the fallen tree, and all the wild animals lived among its branches." The purpose of this destruction was to serve as a warning to other proud trees. In Ezekiel 31:14, God explained, "Therefore no other trees by the waters are to tower proudly on high, lifting their tops above the thick foliage. No other trees so well watered are ever to reach such a height. They are all destined for death, for the earth below, among mortals who go down to the realm of the dead." When Assyria fell, the whole world felt its impact. In Ezekiel 31:15-17, God recalled, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. On the Day it was brought down to the realm of the dead. I covered the deep springs with mourning for it. I held back its streams, and its abundant waters were restrained. Because of it I clothed Lebanon with gloom, and all the trees of the field withered away. I made the nations tremble at the sound of its fall, when I brought it down to the realm of the dead, with those who go down to the pit. Then all the trees of Eden, the choicest and best of Lebanon, the well-watered trees, were consoled in the earth below. The other nations that depended on Assyria also suffered when it fell. They, too, went down to the grave with it, to those slain by the sword, along with those who were its arm, who lived in its shadow among the nations. Then God turned his attention to Egypt. In Ezekiel 31-18 he asked, "To which of the trees of Eden can you be compared in glory and greatness? Yet you will be brought down with the trees of Eden to the depths of the earth. You will lie among the uncircumcised, with those killed by the sword. This is Pharaoh and all his multitude, declares the sovereign Lord." What happened to Assyria would also happen to Egypt. Despite its current greatness, Pharaoh and his people would be cut down like a towering tree and fall into the depths of the earth, to the pit of oblivion. In the 12th year of exile, God told Ezekiel to raise one final lament over Pharaoh and Egypt. In Ezekiel 32:1-2, we read, "In the 12th year, on the first day of the 12th month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, take up a lament concerning Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, you are like a lion among the nations. You are like a monster in the seas, thrashing about in your rivers, muddying the water with your feet and fouling the streams." Once again, God described Pharaoh as a great sea monster, likely a crocodile, stirring up and polluting the waters. But now, this monster would be caught like a fish in God's net. In Ezekiel 32:3-6, God declared, "This is what the sovereign Lord says, with a great throng of people I will cast my net over you, and they will haul you up in my net. I will throw you on the land and hurl you onto the open field. I will let all the birds of the sky settle on you, and all the wild animals gorge themselves on you. I will spread your flesh on the mountains and fill the valleys with your remains. I will drench the land with your flowing blood all the way to the mountains, and the ravines will be filled with your flesh." The death of Egypt's monster would have cosmic consequences. In Ezekiel 32:7-8, God said, "When I snuff you out, I will cover the heavens and darken their stars. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon will not give its light. All the shining lights in the heavens I will darken over you. I will bring darkness over your land, declares the sovereign Lord." Egypt's downfall would shake many nations. In Ezekiel 32:9-10, God continued, "I will trouble the hearts of many peoples when I bring about your destruction among the nations, among lands you have not known. I will cause many peoples to be appalled at you, and their kings will shudder with horror because of you when I brandish my sword before them. On the day of your downfall, each of them will tremble every moment for his life." God then revealed once more the instrument of his wrath. In Ezekiel 32:11-16, he said, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says, the sword of the king of Babylon will come against you. I will cause your hordes to fall by the swords of mighty men, the most ruthless of all nations. They will shatter the pride of Egypt, and all her hordes will be overthrown. I will destroy all her cattle from beside abundant waters no human foot will muddy them any more, nor will the hooves of cattle muddy them. Then I will let her waters settle and make her rivers flow like oil, declares the sovereign Lord. When I make Egypt desolate and strip the land of everything in it, when I strike down all who live there, they will know that I am the Lord." This would be a lament sung by many nations. This is the lament they will chant for her. The daughters of the nations will sing it. For Egypt and all her multitude they will chant it, declares the sovereign Lord. 14 days later, God gave Ezekiel a striking vision of Egypt's descent into the realm of the dead. In Ezekiel 32:17-21, we read, "In the 12th year, on the 15th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, wail for the hordes of Egypt and consign them to the earth below with the daughters of mighty nations, to those who go down to the pit." God mocked Egypt's pride. "Whom do you surpass in beauty? Go down and be laid to rest with the uncircumcised." They would fall among those slain by the sword. The sword is drawn. Let her be dragged off with all her hordes. From within the grave, the mighty leaders will say of Egypt and her allies, "They have come down and lie with the uncircumcised, with those killed by the sword." A whole list of ancient powers was already in the realm of the dead, awaiting Egypt's arrival. In Ezekiel 32:22-30, God named some of them. Assyria is there with her whole army. She is surrounded by the graves of all her slain, fallen by the sword. Their graves are in the depths of the pit, and her army lies around her grave. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Those who once spread terror in the land of the living, Elam, Meshech, Tubal, Edom, the princes of the north, and all the Sidonians. All these ancient powers had fallen and vanished into the darkness of forgetfulness. Egypt's fate would be the same. In Ezekiel 32:31-32, God concluded, "Pharaoh, he and all his army, will see them and be consoled for all his hordes that were slain by the sword, declares the sovereign Lord. Although I had him spread terror in the land of the living, Pharaoh and all his hordes will lie among the uncircumcised, with those killed by the sword, declares the sovereign Lord." Thus ended Ezekiel's prophecies against the foreign nations. Divine judgment would fall not only on Israel, but on all nations that opposed God and rejoiced at his people's downfall. All these world powers, no matter how wealthy, mighty, or proud, would fall before the sovereign Lord, who rules over all the kingdoms of the earth. The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel once again. In Ezekiel 33:1-5, God said, "Son of man, speak to your people and say to them, when I bring the sword against a land, and the people of the land choose one of their men and make him their watchman, and he sees the sword coming against the land and blows the trumpet to warn the people, then if anyone hears the trumpet but does not heed the warning, and the sword comes and takes their life, their blood will be on their own head. Since they heard the sound of the trumpet but did not heed the warning, their blood will be on them. If they had heeded the warning, they would have saved themselves." God was reminding Ezekiel of his responsibility as a watchman. A watchman in ancient Israel stood on the city wall, alert and ready to warn of any approaching danger. It was a role of immense responsibility. But, God continued in Ezekiel 33:6, "If the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person will be taken because of their sin, but I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood." Now, as a new beginning, after the fall of Jerusalem, God renewed this calling. In Ezekiel 33:7-9, he declared, "Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. When I say to the wicked, 'You wicked person, you will surely die,' and you do not speak out to dissuade them from their ways, that wicked person will die for their sin, and I will hold you accountable for their blood. But if you do warn the wicked to turn from their ways, and they do not do so, they will die for their sin, though you yourself will be saved." The people were confused about why God was punishing them. In Ezekiel 33:10-11, they said, "Our offenses and sins weigh us down, and we are wasting away because of them. How then can we live?" God answered. "As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that they turn from their ways and live. Turn from your evil ways. Why will you die, people of Israel? God explained that past righteousness could not protect someone who began to sin, just as a sinful past would not condemn someone who genuinely repents. In Ezekiel 33:12-16, he said, "Therefore, Son of man, say to your people, the righteousness of the righteous will not save them when they disobey, and the wickedness of the wicked will not cause them to fall when they turn from it. The righteous person, if they sin, will not be allowed to live because of their former righteousness. If I tell a righteous person that they will surely live, but then they trust in their righteousness and do evil, none of the righteous things they have done will be remembered. They will die for the evil they have done. And if I say to a wicked person, you will surely die, but they then turn away from their sin and do what is just and right, if they return what they took in pledge, restore what they have stolen, follow the decrees that give life, and do no evil, that person will surely live. They will not die. None of the sins they have committed will be remembered against them. They have done what is just and right. They will surely live." However, the people of Israel were claiming that God's ways were not just. In Ezekiel 33:17-20, God responded, "Yet your people say the way of the Lord is not just, but it is their way that is not just. If a righteous person turns from their righteousness and does evil, they will die for it. And if a wicked person turns away from their wickedness and does what is just and right, they will live by doing so. Yet you say, the way of the Lord is not just. But I will judge each of you according to your own ways, people of Israel." Then something significant happened. In Ezekiel 33:21-22 we read, "In the 12th year of our exile, in the 10th month on the 5th day, a man who had escaped from Jerusalem came to me and said, 'The city has fallen.' Now the evening before the man arrived, the hand of the Lord was on me, and he opened my mouth before the man came to me in the morning. So my mouth was opened, and I was no longer silent." After months of forced silence, Ezekiel could speak again, and with this new voice came a message about the survivors still in Jerusalem. In Ezekiel 33:23-26, God said, "Son of man, the people living in those ruins in the land of Israel are saying, 'Abraham was only one man, yet he possessed the land. We are many. Surely the land has been given to us as a possession.' But God explained that they were not worthy. Say to them, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says. You eat meat with the blood still in it. You look to your idols and shed blood. Should you then possess the land? You rely on your swords, you do detestable things, and each of you defiles his neighbor's wife. Should you then possess the land?" Destruction was coming even for the survivors in Jerusalem. In Ezekiel 33:27-29, God declared, "Say this to them, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says. As surely as I live, those who are left in the ruins will fall by the sword. Those in the open country I will give to wild animals to be devoured, and those in strongholds and caves will die of plague. I will make the land a desolate waste, and her proud strength will come to an end. The mountains of Israel will become desolate, so that no one will cross them. Then they will know that I am the Lord, when I have made the land a desolate waste, because of all the detestable things they have done." Many were listening to Ezekiel's words, but not obeying them. In Ezekiel 33:30-33, God warned, "As for you, son of man, your people are talking about you by the walls and at the doors of the houses, saying to each other, 'Come and hear the message that has come from the Lord.' My people come to you, as they usually do, and sit before you to hear your words, but they do not put them into practice. Their mouths speak of love, but their hearts are greedy for unjust gain. Indeed, to them you are nothing more than one who sings love songs with a beautiful voice and plays an instrument well, for they hear your words, but do not put them into practice. When all this comes true, and it surely will, then they will know that a prophet has been among them." After condemning the people, God turned his attention to the leaders of Israel, whom he called shepherds. In Ezekiel 34:1-6, God said, "Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, woe to the shepherds of Israel who only take care of themselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourselves with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays, or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally, so they were scattered because there was no shepherd, and when they were scattered they became food for all the wild animals. My sheep wandered over all the mountains and on every high hill. They were scattered over the whole earth, and no one searched or looked for them. Israel's leaders, kings, princes, priests, had failed their people. They used their positions for personal gain instead of serving those under their care. Rather than protecting the sheep, they exploited them. Because of this, God pronounced his judgment. In Ezekiel 34:7-10, he declared, "Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because my flock has been plundered and has become food for all the wild animals for lack of a shepherd, and because my shepherds did not search for my flock, but cared for themselves rather than for my flock, therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against the shepherds and will hold them accountable. For my flock, I will remove them from tending the flock so that the shepherds can no longer feed themselves. I will rescue my flock from their mouths, and it will no longer be food for them." But God would not abandon his people. In fact, he himself would come to care for them. In Ezekiel 34:11-16, he promised, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says, I myself will search for my sheep and look after them. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on a day of clouds and darkness. I will bring them out from the nations and gather them from the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the valleys, and in all the settlements of the land. I will tend them in a good pasture, and the mountain heights of Israel will be their grazing land. There they will lie down in good grazing land, and there they will feed in a rich pasture on the mountains of Israel. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the sovereign Lord. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak, but the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd the flock with justice." God would also judge between sheep and sheep, that is, among members of his people who had mistreated and harmed one another. In Ezekiel 34:17-22, he warned, "As for you, my flock, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will judge between one sheep and another, and between rams and goats. Is it not enough for you to feed on the good pasture? Must you also trample the rest of your pasture with your feet? Is it not enough for you to drink clear water? Must you also muddy the rest with your feet? Must my flock feed on what you have trampled and drink what you have muddied with your feet? Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says to them. See, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep. Because you shove with flank and shoulder, butting all the weak sheep with your horns until you have driven them away, I will save my flock, and they will no longer be plundered. I will judge between one sheep and another." Then God made an extraordinary promise. In Ezekiel 34:23-24, he revealed, "I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them. He will tend them and be their shepherd. I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken." This promise pointed to the coming Messiah, the Son of David, who would shepherd God's people with justice and love. The result would be peace and blessing for God's people. In Ezekiel 34:25-31, he promised, I will make a covenant of peace with them, and rid the land of savage beasts, so that they may live in the wilderness and sleep in the forests in safety. I will make them and the places surrounding my hill a blessing. I will send down showers in season. There will be showers of blessing. The trees will yield their fruit, and the ground will yield its crops. The people will be secure in their land. They will know that I am the Lord when I break the bars of their yoke and rescue them from the hands of those who enslaved them. They will no longer be plundered by the nations, nor will wild animals devour them. They will live in safety, and no one will make them afraid. I will provide for them a land renowned for its crops, and they will no longer suffer from famine in the land or bear the scorn of the nations. Then they will know that I, the Lord their God, am with them, and that they, the Israelites, are my people, declares the sovereign Lord. You are my sheep, the sheep of my pasture, and I am your God, declares the sovereign Lord. God then turned his attention to Edom, Israel's ancient enemy and descendant of Esau, Jacob's brother. In Ezekiel 35, 1-4, we read, "The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir. Prophesy against it and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I am against you, Mount Seir, and I will stretch out my hand against you and make you a desolate waste. I will turn your towns into ruins, and you will be desolate. Then you will know that I am the Lord." Mount Seir was the mountainous region inhabited by the Edomites. God explained why he was against them. In Ezekiel 35:5-9, he declared, "Because you harbored an ancient hostility and delivered the Israelites over to the sword at the time of their calamity, the time their punishment reached its climax, therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I will give you over to bloodshed, and bloodshed will pursue you. Since you did not hate bloodshed, bloodshed will pursue you. I will make Mount Seir a desolate waste, and cut off from it all who come and go. I will fill your mountains with the slain. Those killed by the sword will fall on your hills, in your valleys, and in all your ravines. I will make you desolate forever. Your towns will not be inhabited. Then you will know that I am the Lord." The Edomites had committed two fatal mistakes. First, they helped the Babylonians capture Israelites who were trying to escape when Jerusalem fell. Second, they hoped to take Israel's land for themselves. In Ezekiel 35:10-15, God continued, "Because you have said, these two nations and countries will be ours, and we will take possession of them, even though I, the Lord, was there, therefore as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I will treat you in accordance with the anger and jealousy you showed in your hatred of them, and I will make myself known among them when I judge you. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have heard all the contemptible things you have said against the mountains of Israel. You said, they have been laid waste and have been given over to us to devour. You boasted against me and spoke against me without restraint, and I heard it. This is what the sovereign Lord says, while the whole earth rejoices, I will make you desolate. Because you rejoiced when the inheritance of the people of Israel became desolate, that is what I will do to you. You will be desolate, Mount Seir, you and all of Edom. Then they will know that I am the Lord." After prophesying against Edom, God turned his attention to the mountains of Israel, which had been devastated. In contrast to the desolation promised to Edom, God promised restoration to Israel. In Ezekiel 36:1-7, he said, "Son of man, prophesy to the mountains of Israel, and say, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The enemy said of you, Aha! The ancient heights have become our possession. Therefore prophesy and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, because they ravaged and attacked you from every side, so that you became the possession of the rest of the nations and the object of people's talk and slander. Therefore, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to the mountains and hills, to the ravines and valleys, to the desolate ruins and the deserted towns that have been plundered and ridiculed by the rest of the surrounding nations. This is what the sovereign Lord says. In my burning zeal, I have spoken against the rest of the nations and against all. Edom, for with glee and with malice in their hearts, they made my land their own possession, so that they might plunder its pasture land. Therefore prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and say to the mountains and hills, to the ravines and valleys, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I speak in my jealous wrath, because you have suffered the scorn of the nations. God then promised renewed prosperity for Israel. In Ezekiel 36:8-12, he declared, But you, mountains of Israel, will produce branches and fruit for my people Israel, for they will soon come home. I am concerned for you, and will look on you with favor. You will be plowed and sown, and I will multiply the number of people upon you, the whole house of Israel. The towns will be inhabited, and the ruins rebuilt. I will increase the number of people and animals upon you, and they will be fruitful and numerous. I will settle people on you, as in the past, and will make you prosper more than before. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I will cause people, my people Israel, to walk upon you. They will possess you, and you will be their inheritance. You will never again deprive them of their children. The issue went deeper than just the land. The people of Israel had defiled it through their sins. In Ezekiel 36:16-19, God explained, The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, when the people of Israel were living in their own land, they defiled it by their conduct and their actions. Their conduct was like a woman's impurity in my sight. So I poured out my wrath on them because they had shed blood in the land, and because they had defiled it with their idols. I dispersed them among the nations, and they were scattered through the countries. I judged them according to their conduct and their actions. However, Israel's exile caused God's name to be profaned among the nations. In Ezekiel 36:20-23, he continued, And wherever they went among the nations, they profaned my holy name. For it was said of them, These are the Lord's people, and yet they had to leave his land. I had concern for my holy name, which the people of Israel profaned among the nations where they had gone. Therefore say to the house of Israel, This is what the sovereign Lord says. It is not for your sake, O house of Israel, that I am going to act, but for the sake of my holy name, which you have profaned among the nations where you have gone. I will show the holiness of my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, the name you have profaned among them. Then the nations will know that I am the Lord, declares the sovereign Lord, when I show myself holy through you before their eyes. So God promised to restore them, not because of who they were, but for the sake of his name. In Ezekiel 36:24-30, he declared, For I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. You will live in the land I gave your forefathers. You will be my people, and I will be your God. I will save you from all your uncleanness. I will call for the grain and make it plentiful, and will not bring famine upon you. I will increase the fruit of the trees and the crops of the field, so that you will no longer suffer disgrace among the nations because of famine. Eventually, the people of Israel would acknowledge their sins and repent. In Ezekiel 36:31-36, God concluded, Then you will remember your evil ways and wicked deeds, and you will loathe yourselves for your sins and detestable practices. I want you to know that I am not doing this for your sake, declares the sovereign Lord. Be ashamed and disgraced for your conduct, O house of Israel. This is what the sovereign Lord says. On the day I cleanse you from all your sins, I will resettle. Your towns and the ruins will be rebuilt. The desolate land will be cultivated instead of lying desolate in the sight of all who pass through it. They will say, this land that was laid waste has become like the Garden of Eden. The cities that were lying in ruins, desolate and destroyed, are now fortified and inhabited. Then the nations around you that remain will know that I, the Lord, have rebuilt what was destroyed and replanted what was desolate. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will do it. God ended this section with a promise of population increase. In Ezekiel 36:37-38, he said, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. Once again I will yield to the plea of the house of Israel and do this for them. I will make their people as numerous as sheep, as numerous as the flocks for offerings at Jerusalem during her appointed feasts. So will the ruined cities be filled with flocks of people. Then they will know that I am the Lord." Ezekiel then received one of the most vivid and extraordinary visions in the entire Bible. In Ezekiel 37:1-3, we read, "The hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. He asked me, 'Son of man, can these bones live?' I said, 'Sovereign Lord, you alone know.'" The scene was desolate, a valley filled with bones, completely dry, lifeless for a long time. It was a vivid image of the people of Israel in exile, hopeless, lifeless, with no future. But God had other plans. In Ezekiel 37:4-6, he commanded, "Then he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord." Ezekiel obeyed, and something incredible happened. In Ezekiel 37:7-10 he recounts, "So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I was prophesying there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them. They came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast army. The valley of death had become a field of life. Dry bones had been transformed into a powerful army. It was a dramatic demonstration of God's power to restore. The meaning of the vision was made clear. In Ezekiel 37:11-14, God said, "Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, my people. I'm going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord when I open your graves and bring you up from them. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord." Just as the dry bones came back to life, God promised to restore his people to their land, filled with his spirit and renewed with hope. Right after the vision of the dry bones, God gave Ezekiel another physical demonstration. In Ezekiel 37:15-17, we read, "The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, take a stick of wood and write on it, belonging to Judah and the Israelites associated with him. Then take another stick of wood and write on it, belonging to Ephraim, the stick of Joseph, and all the house of Israel associated with him. Join them together into one stick so that they become one in your hand. This action symbolized the future reunification of Israel's divided kingdom. After Solomon's death, Israel had split into two kingdoms, Israel, or Ephraim, in the north and Judah in the south. The northern kingdom was conquered by Assyria in 722 BC, and its 10 tribes were scattered. The southern kingdom was conquered by Babylon in 586 BC. Now God was promising to bring the two back together. When the people asked what this meant, Ezekiel explained in 37:19-22, "Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am going to take the stick of Joseph, which is in Ephraim's hand, and of the Israelite tribes associated with him, and join it to Judah's stick, making them a single stick of wood, and they will become one in my hand. Hold before their eyes the sticks you have written on, and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will take the Israelites out of the nations where they have gone. I will gather them from all around and bring them back into their own land. I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel. There will be one king over all of them, and they will never again be two nations or divided into two kingdoms. This reunification would be accompanied by a deep spiritual cleansing. In Ezekiel 37:23-24, God promised, they will no longer defile themselves with their idols and vile images, or with any of their offenses, for I will save them from all their sinful backsliding, and I will cleanse them. They will be my people, and I will be their God. My servant David will be king over them, and they will all have one shepherd. They will follow my laws and be careful to keep my decrees. The servant David mentioned here wasn't literally King David, who had died centuries earlier, but rather the promised Messiah, David's descendant, who would come to reign in righteousness. The restoration would be permanent and complete. In Ezekiel 37:25-28, God concluded, they will live in the land I gave to my servant Jacob, the land where your ancestors lived. They and their children and their children's children will live there forever, and David my servant will be their prince forever. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It will be an everlasting covenant. I will establish them and increase their numbers, and I will put my sanctuary among them forever. My dwelling place will be with them. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Then the nations will know that I, the Lord, make Israel holy when my sanctuary is among them forever. The expectation of a close and permanent relationship with God, symbolized by his sanctuary among them, was the pinnacle of the restoration promise. Then Ezekiel's prophecies took a surprising turn, looking far into the future. In Ezekiel 38:1-6, we read, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against Gog, of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with your whole army, your horses, your horsemen fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets. Also Gomer with all its troops, and Beth Togarmah from the far north with all its troops, the many nations with you. Gog and Magog represent distant nations that will unite against Israel in some future time. These nations include peoples from all over the earth in a massive coalition against God's people. God commanded Gog to prepare for an attack. In Ezekiel 38:7-9, he said, get ready. Be prepared, you, and all the hordes gathered about you, and take command of them. After many days, you will be called to arms. In future years, you will invade a land that has recovered from war, whose people were gathered from many nations to the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. They were brought out from the nations, and now all of them live in safety. You will advance coming like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land, you, all your troops and many nations with you. Gog's intention would be to plunder and destroy a restored and peaceful Israel. In Ezekiel 38:10-12, God revealed, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. On that day, thoughts will come into your mind, and you will devise an evil scheme. You will say, 'I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and bars. I will plunder and loot and turn my hand against the resettled ruins and the people gathered from the nations, rich in livestock and goods, living at the center of the land.'" This invasion would be permitted by God for a specific purpose. In Ezekiel 38:14-16, he explained, "Therefore, Son of man, prophesy and say to Gog, this is what the sovereign Lord says. In that day, when my people Israel are living in safety, will you not take notice of it? You will come from your place, in the far north, you and many nations with you, all of them riding on horses, a great horde, a mighty army. You will advance against my people Israel like a cloud that covers the land. In days to come, Gog, I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I am proved holy through you before their eyes." When Gog attacks, God will intervene directly. In Ezekiel 38:18-23, he declared, "This is what will happen in that day. When Gog attacks the land of Israel, my hot anger will be aroused, declares the sovereign Lord. In my zeal and fiery wrath, I declare that at that time there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will execute judgment on him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops and on the many nations with him. And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Gog's defeat would be absolute. In Ezekiel 39:1-7, God continued, "Son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I am against you. Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, I will turn you around and drag you along. I will bring you from the far north and send you against the mountains of Israel. Then I will strike your bow from your left hand and make your arrows drop from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you will fall, you and all your troops, and the nations with you. I will give you as food to all kinds of carrion birds and to the wild animals. You will fall in the open field, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. I will send fire on Magog and on those who live in safety in the coastlands, and they will know that I am the Lord. I will make known my holy name among my people, Israel. I will no longer let my holy name be profaned, and the nations will know that I, the Lord, am the Holy One in Israel." The aftermath of the battle would be long-lasting. In Ezekiel 39:9-16, God described, "Then those who live in the towns of Israel will go out and use the weapons for fuel and burn them, the small and large shields, the bows and arrows, the war clubs and spears. For 7 years they will use them for fuel. They will not need to gather wood from the fields or cut it from the forests, because they will use the weapons for fuel. And they will plunder those who plundered them, and loot those who looted them, declares the sovereign Lord. On that day, I will give Gog a burial place in Israel, in the valley of those who travel east of the sea. It will block the way of travelers, because Gog and all his hordes will be buried there. So it will be called the Valley of Hamon Gog. For 7 months, the Israelites will be burying them in order to cleanse the land. All the people of the land will bury them, and the day I am glorified will be a memorable day for them, declares the sovereign Lord. The ultimate purpose of this entire battle would be to glorify God and fully restore Israel. In Ezekiel 39:21-29, he concluded, "I will display my glory among the nations, and all the nations will see the punishment I inflict and the hand I lay on them. From that day forward, the people of Israel will know that I am the Lord their God, and the nations will know that the people of Israel went into exile for their sin because they were unfaithful to me. So I hid my face from them and handed them over to their enemies, and they all fell by the sword. I dealt with them according to their uncleanness and their offenses, and I hid my face from them. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says: I will now restore the fortunes of Jacob and will have compassion on all the people of Israel, and I will be zealous for my holy name. They will forget their shame and all the unfaithfulness they showed toward me when they lived in safety in their land, with no one to make them afraid. When I have brought them back from the nations and have gathered them from the countries of their enemies, I will be proved holy through them in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord their God. For though I sent them into exile among the nations, I will gather them to their own land, not leaving any behind. I will no longer hide my face from them, for I will pour out my spirit on the people of Israel, declares the sovereign Lord. In the 25th year of the exile, Ezekiel received an extraordinary vision of God's future temple. In Ezekiel 41:4 we read, "In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was taken, on that very day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me there. In the visions of God he took me to the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain. On its southern slope were some buildings that looked like a city. He took me there, and I saw a man whose appearance was like bronze. He was standing in the gateway with a linen cord and a measuring rod in his hand. The man said to me, 'Son of man, look with your eyes and hear with your ears, and pay attention to everything I show you, for that is why you have been brought here. Tell the house of Israel everything you see.'" This intricate and detailed vision spans chapters 40 to 43, describing a magnificent temple with precise dimensions. It's as if Ezekiel was touring a grand architectural project guided by a divine messenger. The temple included gates, courtyards, chambers, and entrances, all meticulously measured. First, the messenger measured the outer wall and the eastern gate. In Ezekiel 45-16, Ezekiel watched as the man with the measuring rod took detailed measurements of the gate, its pillars, threshold, courtyard, guardrooms, and vestibule. Every detail was recorded with precision. Then in Ezekiel 40-17-27, the messenger led Ezekiel to the outer court and measured the northern and southern gates, which had the same dimensions as the eastern gate. In Ezekiel 40:28-37, he measured the inner court and its 3 gates, south, east, and north. Once again, the measurements were consistent, showing a perfectly symmetrical design. In Ezekiel 40:38-47, the messenger showed Ezekiel the rooms where the sacrifices were to be prepared and where the priests who served in the temple would stay. Everything was arranged to ensure proper worship. The messenger then measured the temple itself. In Ezekiel 41:1-4, he began with the main sanctuary. Then the man brought me to the sanctuary and measured the side pillars. Each was 6 cubits wide. The entrance was 10 cubits wide, and the side walls of the entrance were 5 cubits on each side. He measured the sanctuary. It was 40 cubits long and 20 cubits wide. Then he went into the inner sanctuary and measured the pillars of the entrance. Each was 2 cubits wide. The entrance was 6 cubits wide, and the side walls of the entrance were 7 cubits on each side. He measured the inner sanctuary. It was 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide. The rest of chapter 41 describes other aspects of the temple: its side rooms, the raised platform, decorative carvings of cherubim and palm trees, and the wooden altar. In Ezekiel 42:1-14, the messenger showed Ezekiel the priest's chambers to the north and south of the temple, where they would eat the most sacred offerings and store their special garments. Finally, the messenger completed the external measurements in Ezekiel 42:15-20. When he had finished measuring what was inside the temple area, he led me out through the east gate and measured the entire area surrounding it. He measured the east side. With the measuring rod, it was 500 rods. He measured the north side. It was 500 rods. He measured the south side. It was 500 rods. Then he turned to the west side and measured. It was 500 rods. So he measured all 4 sides. It had a wall around it, 500 rods long and 500 rods wide, to separate the holy from the common. Then something incredible happened. After revealing the temple's design, the messenger brought Ezekiel to witness the return of God's glory to the temple. In Ezekiel 43:1-5 we read, "Then the man brought me to the gate facing east, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roar of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. The vision I saw was like the vision I had seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the visions I had seen by the Kibar River, and I fell face down. The glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple." After all the earlier visions of judgment and exile, the return of God's glory to the temple, something Ezekiel had seen depart in earlier visions, was a triumphant sign of full restoration. God then spoke directly to Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 43:6-9, he said, "While the man was standing beside me, I heard someone speaking to me from inside the temple. He said, 'Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place for the soles of my feet. This is where I will live among the Israelites forever. The people of Israel will never again defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their prostitution or the lifeless idols of their kings at their high places. When they placed their threshold next to mine and their doorposts beside mine, with only a wall between me and them, they defiled my holy name by their detestable practices, so I consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their prostitution and the lifeless idols of their kings far from me, and I will live among them forever.'" The purpose of this detailed vision was to motivate the people to repentance. In Ezekiel 43:10-12, God explained, "Son of man, describe the temple to the people of Israel, so that they may be ashamed of their sins. Let them consider its design, and if they are ashamed of all they have done, make known to them the design of the temple, its arrangement, its exits and entrances, its whole design and all its regulations and laws. Write these down before them, so that they may be faithful to its design and follow all its regulations. This is the law of the temple. The entire area on top of the mountain will be most holy. Yes, this is the law of the temple." The remaining chapters describe the altar and its sacrifices, 43:13-27, the rules for the priests, 44:1-31, the distribution of the land, 45:1-8, offerings and festivals, 45:9-46-24, and other ordinances for renewed worship. At the end of his vision, Ezekiel saw something truly marvelous, a river flowing from the temple, bringing life wherever it went. In Ezekiel 47:1-5, he describes it like this: "The man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the temple faced east. The water was coming down from under the south side of the temple, south of the altar. Then he brought me out through the north gate and led me around the outside to the outer gate facing east. and the water was trickling from the south side. As the man went eastward, with a measuring line in his hand, he measured off 1,000 cubits and then led me through water that was ankle deep. He measured off another 1,000 cubits and led me through water that was knee deep. He measured off another 1,000 and led me through water that was up to the waist. He measured off another 1,000. But now it was a river that I could not cross, because the water had risen and was deep enough to swim in, a river that no one could cross. This miraculous river grew without any tributary, flowing directly from the presence of God in the temple. The messenger explained to Ezekiel the transformative effect of this river. In Ezekiel 47:6-12, we read, "He asked me, 'Son of man, do you see this?' Then he led me back to the bank of the river. When I arrived there, I saw a great number of trees on each side of the river. He said to me, 'This water flows toward the eastern region and goes down into the Arabah, where it enters the Dead Sea. When it empties into the sea, the salty water there becomes fresh. Swarms of living creatures will live wherever the river flows. There will be large numbers of fish, because this water flows there and makes the salt water fresh. So where the river flows, everything will live. Fishermen will stand along the shore. From En-Gedi to En-Eglaim, there will be places for spreading nets. The fish will be of many kinds, like the fish of the Mediterranean Sea. But the swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They will be left for salt. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. Every month they will bear fruit, because the water from the sanctuary flows to them. Their fruit will serve for food, and their leaves for healing." This powerful image of healing water flowing from God's temple symbolized the spiritual purification and renewal that God would bring. The dead waters of the Dead Sea, also called the Salt Sea, would be transformed into a place of abundant life. Ezekiel's vision concluded with the division of the Promised Land among the 12 tribes of Israel. In Ezekiel 47:13-14, God said, "This is what the sovereign Lord says. These are the boundaries of the land that you will divide among the 12 tribes of Israel as their inheritance, with 2 portions for Joseph. You are to divide it equally among them, because I swore with uplifted hand to give it to your ancestors. This land will become your inheritance." In Ezekiel 47:15-20, God laid out the precise borders of the land to the north, east, south, and west, covering much of the original territory promised to Abraham. This land would be divided among the tribes of Israel, but there was also provision for foreigners. In Ezekiel 47:21-23, God declared, "You are to distribute this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. You are to allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and for the foreigners residing among you and who have children. You are to consider them as native-born Israelites. Along with you, they are to be allotted an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. In whatever tribe a foreigner resides, there you are to give them their inheritance, declares the sovereign Lord." The final chapters describe in detail how the land would be divided among the tribes, with specific portions assigned to each. On 48:129, as well as designated areas for the holy city and the temple. The vision ends with a stunning picture of the renewed holy city. In Ezekiel 48:30-35 we read, "These will be the exits of the city. Beginning on the north side, which is 4,500 cubits long, the city will have gates named after the tribes of Israel. The 3 gates on the north side will be the gate of Reuben, the gate of Judah, and the gate of Levi. On the east side, also 4,500 cubits long, will be 3 gates, the gate of Joseph, the gate of Benjamin, and the gate of Dan. On the south side, 4,500 cubits long, will be 3 gates, the gate of Simeon, the gate of Issachar, and the gate of Zebulun. On the west side, also 4,500 cubits long, will be 3 gates, the gate of Gad, the gate of Asher, and the gate of Naphtali. The total perimeter of the city will be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that time on will be, The Lord is There. With those hopeful words, the Lord is there, the book of Ezekiel comes to a close. After all the desolation, exile, and judgment, the final promise is one of God's presence, dwelling forever with his restored people. If this journey through the book of Ezekiel touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the depths of biblical stories like you've never seen before. Every subscription helps us keep creating content that connects the ancient words of Scripture with our lives today. And why not share this video with friends or family members who need to hear this message of hope? Maybe someone you know is going through their own kind of spiritual exile and needs to know that restoration is possible. Drop a comment sharing which part of Ezekiel's story impacted you the most, and stay tuned for our next video where we'll keep uncovering the wonders of God's Word. Remember the final words of Ezekiel, the name of the heavenly city, the Lord is there. That promise is for you too, today and always. See you in the next video.